Coons at the Wellness Radio TV is in Charleston, South Carolina, and you have no idea how excited I am today to be in the home of world-renowned artist, composer, thought-provoking leader, Jonathan King. Wow. And you know what? Let me tell you, look at this. This is incredible. You know, when you think about South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina in particular, and you think about the beauty of this city, the Gullah people, and all the flavor, whether it's the food, whether it's just the lifestyle, and you're able to capture that in your work that you do, whether it is on stage, whether it is on canvas, or whether it's in your conversation and getting people to think about who we are and our contributions to the United States of America. Jonathan, thank you for sharing and willing to be here.
A pleasure, Pamela.
So excited, so excited. So first of all, for some of our audience members who have been under a rock and may not know who Jonathan is, tell them about Jonathan.
Well, Jonathan Green is a 62-year-old African-American artist that hails from Gardens Corner, South Carolina. I was born in 1955, and I studied at the Art Institute of Chicago and traveled abroad often under various capacities. I worked at the House of Pierre Balmain, did a project with them, a freelance project with them, and then I had works that was on display in Paris for a while, and I just have a collection of friends from all over the world, so I had the opportunity to get to travel and meet with them and do things with them and work really hard in the studio here.
And on that list, Maya Angelou and...
Dr. Maya Angelou, whom I met through Dr. Richard Long, whom I met through Ransom Boykin, who was a writer, poet, activist, and boy, I tell you, the list just goes on and on. When I think about it, I worked with Mr. Alvin Ailey in a fundraising capacity when his company did, and Judith Jameson did, redid the works of Katherine Dunham. Mm-hmm. That was in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And I worked with the great artist, Mr. William Carter. Mm. My partner and I have a major collection that we've been collecting for 40 years of works mainly from the WPA period, which would include Mr. Charles White and Miss Elizabeth Catlett and Irene Clark, and the list goes on of the WPA people, Dr. Margaret Burroughs. And so we started showing that work at different galleries. We've been doing that at museums and cultural centers for about 20 years.
And so how long have you been back in Charleston?
I've been back in Charleston, downtown Charleston, about 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
I've been in the area for about 10 years.
But you grew up in Gullah country.
I grew up in Gullah country. This is all Gullah country. Everywhere black people are is Gullah country because they all emanated from here.
Well, yeah, Sullivan Island, you know, it said that 80% of us are related to somebody that came through Sullivan Island.
That's right. And even, you know, some of the people that left South Carolina went up to Nova Scotia, then went to other places, you know, Isadora Duncan, Warmth of Other Suns, Isabella Wilkinson. Mm-hmm. Her book was just so important in terms of helping people to understand that we moved westward as well. We not only went north and south, we went west.
But in her book, she talks about this being the largest group of people to pick up and move in the history.
That's right.
African Americans moving from the South, the largest group of people in the history of mankind to do this massive migration.
Well,
taking our flavor all across the world, all across the United States and across the world.
I really believe that we first came here on our own as just navigators and explorers and then contractors. And slavery started relatively late in terms of bringing an abundance of children from West Africa, because most of the people that were brought here on those boats were children. Mm-hmm.
Prime Negroes, as they call them.
Prime Negroes, as they call them. But the primeness of them being Negroes was the ingenious 20,000 year history of rice culture. So when the Portuguese sailed down the west coast of Africa in the 12th and 14th centuries, then they saw the west coast of Africa as the gold coast because of the harvest of the rice. And that's when the creativity of using human bodies as an economic tool began the transformation of West Africans to the Caribbean and to the United States.
And rice was king way before cotton was king.
Absolutely. Rice goes back to the late 1600s, and it started as inland rice, and but it was the technology of the Africans. They were so, I mean, if you can imagine anywhere where people have done something for thousands of years, you know. So rice is not just a food, a plant and a food. It's also a culture, and it's a culture that had been intact and survived for all those years. And they came and disrupted it by removing the young people. And when you remove the young people, the most gifted, talented people of any community, culture, you have taken away the soul, the art, the heart of the place.
And you say that, Jonathan, and I think about just here in the United States of America, how we see our young people and their lives being disruptive. When we talk about African American males between the ages of 18 and 25 that are dying in the streets every night and being incarcerated, and the how our children are not being educated. I was at Kramer Middle School in Washington, D.C., just in the shadows of Frederick Douglass's home. You know, Frederick Douglass integrating that neighborhood. But I'm in this school and I am just, my heart broken in how these children are not being educated across the country. So you just said something critical. When you take away the youth, of a people, you destroy their culture.
Absolutely. It cannot regenerate itself.
Wow.
And that's what has happened to West African people. And you know, so when you take that youth, that middle-aged school population away, you have the elders that are there, they have nothing to pass on to anyone.
Wow. Wow. Ooh.
The art is gone. You have no idea who you are or what you look like. And we are people that come from cave drawings. I mean, if people were doing art in caves back hundreds of thousands of years ago, then art is important. And for black people, our biggest problem, our major, major problem is we don't have a culture of the arts in our lives, in our veins, in our soul. When we wake up in the morning, our young boys and our young girls don't have an artistic cultural activity to learn so that they can present, and in a part of that presentation they are growing and they're maturing and they know who they are. They don't have that.
Wow. I'm in the home of Jonathan Green. Jonathan is an artist. This is one of his paintings that we're seated in front of. And we're talking about the contributions of the African who was brought to Sullivan Island in Charleston, South Carolina, and how this history does not get talked about, how the economies of the African played a role in this being one of the probably the richest city in the South initially.
That's why that's why Charleston, beyond South Carolina, Charleston wanted to secede from the Union.
And the first shots fired during the Civil
Fort
War.
Sumter right here.
Yeah, it was fired right here in Charleston because, you know, they were doing quite well.
And we were all over it as black people. I mean, because we were the economic base. We were the manpower. I mean, who you think did all the work When you walk through the city of Charleston, just every brick laid that's on a historical building in Charleston was made by, laid by, maintained by blacks.
And you know what, Jonathan? I was talking to a friend of mine who has visited Charleston, and she said, this is a very sad place for me. I was telling her how much I enjoy the city architecturally, number one. And she said, it's a very sad place for me because I look at that and I think that was made on the backs of black people. And I said, but you know what I think about when I see it? If they could create like this and they were oppressed, they knew they were working hard and they were not going to be able to keep all their money and that they were in bondage and they could do some stuff like this. Wow. How much more can we do?
Well, we could do a lot by just making sure that every school that has a population of young black people have a self-sustaining art department. That's the
Self-sustaining
first art department
not
by the
in
community.
A budget, by the community, not a budget that the school board can cut.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the pride should come from the community. You know, we are near a synagogue, and I watch with glee every Saturday those young Jewish kids going to the synagogue because the Jewish culture, they already know. They've been displaced so many times. They already know that if you're going to maintain and keep a culture, you better teach it yourself.
They're not waiting on public education or anybody else to teach their children about the Holocaust, right?
So on
or
Saturday,
you, or teach you. You know about it.
That's right.
There are those of us who know more about the Holocaust than we know about Sullivan Island.
That's right. And the Jewish culture will teach anybody.
Right.
I mean, people just don't really understand that when you are aware that you've had something and you've lost it, the fervor you need to put into regaining it, nurturing it, and passing it on. And that's the Jewish culture.
Oh.
When you look in your museums, you know, all the paintings, the major donators are usually of Jewish culture.
And I admire that about Jewish people. They do not wait on anybody else to teach their children what they need to know about who they are as Jewish people.
That's right.
And that part, I think sometimes though, in our escaping the pain of this bondage, we've suppressed it and didn't want to talk about it. Do you think that's the case? Part of it?
Well, I used to think that way, but I really don't anymore.
Okay, well, enlighten me. What do I know?
I just believe that the most important thing is to read something. And through reading, you will learn that you are no different than any other race or culture of people on this planet. They've all been victimized, abused, culture taken away from them. So that's nothing new. What is new is how you bring Africa back to the center of your existence. And that's through the arts, culture, work ethic, presentation, pageantry, visual presentation of self, and storytelling, and cooking, and music, and dancing.
We're talking to Jonathan Green, who is an incredible artist, who is very thought-provoking. We're in his home in Charleston, South Carolina. Thank you again for inviting us to be here. As far as I'm concerned, we can't talk enough about what we're talking about now, and I hope it inspires you. I hope you will share this video, repost it, and encourage people to share and repost it so that they will know about Jonathan Green and the efforts. You're doing a project, world premiere of the
Rice Requiem for Rice.
Requiem for Rice. Tell us what Requiem for Rice is.
Well, Requiem is a European description of a piece of music that is of having lost a mourning of someone, and so people have heard Mozart's Requiem, other requiems by other artists, but this is a requiem for the millions of people that lost their lives early, died early, by having been removed from Africa, brought here, worked in rice fields. They only lived about 10 years once they got working in those rice fields.
Really?
So the life expectancy was very short, and they just simply replaced them with another bunch or another crew of people. And but no one has ever mourned those people. They don't. They're scattered throughout this estuary, this landscape of the Low Country. Wherever there are plantations, there are now estimated some 502 plantation sites, and around each plantation site is a black community of people that have lived there for hundreds of years. And many of the African American people that were on heiress property have lost property because of tax, the increase of tax. And when towns develop and prosper and the taxes go up, and of course, you know, the elderly people, many of their children have left and gone north, west, other places. And so there's quite a hardship. So this piece of music is to first remind people of whom we are in our existence in early history. And to allow...
And you're talking about the 1600s.
1600s, 1700s, and 1800s. And to allow people to digress and just get a sampling of the cultural capacity, the wealth and economic capacity, and the spiritual capacity of Africans.
So the wealth, let's talk about the wealth capacity, spiritual capacity. Let's just start with spiritual capacity. What is it you are conveying through this Requiem for Rice?
What I'm conveying from a spiritual capacity is the ode to Africa, the love of a culture that they were abruptly removed from as children. And there's no yearning like that of a child having been taken away from something. That's important, and that's what the first Africans had to deal with. And then developing a way to talk about and maintain and celebrate their African cultures through spiritual music and the activities of coming together in a setting. And early it was outdoors. It was never in a building. And many of us as Gullah people, we still have our spiritual moments outdoors. You know, it may be impromptu, but it's kind of a blessing, I think, that we give to ourselves, that we exist, we believe, and spiritually we're free. And then it's also the spirituality of our kindness and caring and loyalty to all the other races of people that we've worked for. From Europeans to Spanish to Portuguese to Italians to Russians to China. We've worked for all of them, and we've all had the capacity to love them.
In spite.
In spite.
Yeah, I thought once, we've got to be the most forgiving people on the planet.
We are. You know why?
Why?
I think we're more closely attached to the earth. And you have to forgive and move on when you're connected to the ground.
Talk a little bit more about that. Explain why you say that we're more connected to the earth, and when you're connected to the earth, you're more forgiving.
You're more of a humanitarian in the sense that, you know, the earth has the capacity to regrow, redevelop itself, even though it's been burned, it's been chopped, it's been dug, it's been removed. It always has a capacity to reform itself. And I think that's a part of the big spirituality of black people.
And boy, have we hung on.
Well, I don't think for us it's hanging on. I think it's an existence. You know, it's about existing. Hanging on to what?
Well, we have not been wiped out. I mean, we've gone through a lot.
Yes.
You know, just the ride to get here.
And we still are. And I think what we're going through now, even on the spiritual level, is our youths are wanting more from our proposed spiritualness
Our youth are wanting more from our spiritualness. And how are they calling out for that? And how shall we answer that?
I think I think we're in a period of them not quite knowing how to do it. But the only way to do it is to be amongst the elder. So, as young people, they need to find themselves into these cultural places, from cultural centers to churches, and be more giving to people, to the elderly. Many of these small black communities that people are living in, we need more black people to come into these communities and be a part of these communities, and reap the resources of their cultural shared traditions that they're going to get from the elderly.
Right. Which is so much richer than things.
Yes.
So Jonathan Green, artist here in Charleston, South Carolina. We are in his home this morning. The economy, you talked about the economy of rice and the people and how they contributed to the economy. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, for people that unfortunately see the sadness or the oppressive issues that they would consider to be of Charleston, they don't realize the wealth and the beauty and the love of the economics of Charleston, that their ancestors were responsible for it being. So when I walk through the city of Charleston, I smile at every historical building because I know that my people were all over it from the ground up and maintaining it.
From the floor up.
That's right. So that's something to smile about. I smile when I look at the churches because I know my people were all over the churches, from the building to the cleaning to the maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we don't have, unfortunately, the level of depth in which to look at an experience because we've been so sheltered from it.
Because we don't know about it.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and the wrought iron here in Charleston is just amazing. And there's one gentleman who produced more pieces of wrought iron in Charleston than any other person, Mr. Philip Sims.
Mr. Philip Simmons, a
Mr. Philip
great
Simmons.
friend of mine.
Really?
Yes.
I heard the story. Mr. Philip Simmons, as a boy, went to a blacksmith shop.
Mr. Simmons.
Mr. Simmons?
I think it was Mr. Paul Simmons.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Paul Simmons, is that where
That's
Mr.
where
Philip
Mr. Philip Simmons learned the work.
And did he take on his name?
No.
Just happened to have the same last name?
To have the same last name.
And that's where he learned.
Yes.
And when the owner of that shop got ready to retire, he just said to Mr. Simmons, "It's yours."
Well, I mean, but that's apprenticeship.
And,
you want someone to carry on the tradition,
yeah,
to pass it on.
And he walked out the door, and Mr. Philip Simmons never saw him again.
Isn't that incredible?
That's an incredible story.
Because he had passed on his Benin culture.
Yeah.
Ironwork mostly comes out of Benin culture.
Oh, okay.
And he passed it on to his protege, Mr. Philip Simmons, whom he spiritually knew would carry on this work, and he did it until he died.
And he was in his 80s.
And that's his table. He was in his 90s when he died.
He was in his 90s. Wow. And so he has the largest number. If you come to Charleston and you see wrought iron, it was more than likely produced by
Mr. Philip Simmons.
African-American.
Not cast iron, wrought iron.
Wrought iron, a difference.
Big difference.
Yeah. So we don't have enough of that, of our young people willing to sit at the feet of.
And I have kind of an answer, I think, for that.
Okay, what's your answer, Jonathan?
And I'm going to base this on the world and history.
Okay.
So when we go into battle, one group against another, the first things that are done are the intellectuals, the artisans, are usually killed off. if they are not working for the other side. Women are raped, killed. The next generation belongs to whomever wins the war because of the rape. A lot of those people that had the time, such as your monks and your nuns, a lot of those people were gay people. Mm-hmm. Now, you look into African culture, there's no such word as gay.
Right.
It's just a part of the culture. And that person, those people, they know who they are. Everyone knows who they are. They're usually your dancers and your medicine practitioners. What we as black people do is we don't embrace our gay children. That's horrific. Because when you don't embrace your gay children, you lose a lot of your great thinkers, your artisans, your musicians, and people that just generally love and take care of women. And where do we go if we're not welcome in our own communities? We go into the Euro-American communities, to which we leave a great deal of economic resources.
So is that what you did?
That's what most people I know do.
Okay.
I'm 62 years old. Most people I know that are gay, they live in other communities, especially around my age, because they couldn't live in their own communities.
Gotcha.
And be appreciated.
So you lived abroad a lot?
Yes. My grandmother told me to leave when I was 14.
She told you to leave?
She said, leave and don't come back. Go to your grand aunts in New York City and live with them.
So your grandmother knew you were gay at 14?
And she was protecting me.
Huh. So you're 62, so 1955?
Mm-hmm.
So 14. What was life like for you as a youth in the South, knowing you knew you were gay?
I never questioned. I didn't know it certainly under the terminology of gay or homosexuality, but I knew that I had a different interest. I mean, I had both interests. I was interested in farming, and I was interested in, interior cultural
You were in Future
interests.
Farmers of America?
Yes. I was a Cub Scout. I was a Boy Scout. I ran track. I have always been self-sufficient most of my life as a kid. I can remember buying my first school clothes when I was in the 5th grade.
Wow.
So, and I was always productive. I was always interested in not only things, but I was always interested in people. I was interested in how people felt and what they thought of me, thought of a situation or an event. I was always interested in that.
And so as a 14-year-old in the South, or before leaving, what did people think of you? What do you recall knowing that people thought?
Well, I knew people thought in terms of, I don't really know what my peers thought because I never was concerned about what my peers thought, but my elders thought that I was truly a special child. And
what were you doing?
What
were you doing? Like, were you doing artwork? Like,
I was doing artwork. I was helping. I loved being with my grandmother. I lived with my grandmother. Not only lived in a house with her, but I lived with her. Everything we did together. I just adored her, and she adored me. And I was born with the veil, the placenta membrane. And in the West African culture, and in other cultures too, when a child is born that way, the child is between life and death. So you have to remove that very thin membrane very fast, and most people can't see it. So it takes an experienced person.
You were delivered by a midwife?
Yes.
Okay.
And so that was a special moment, and my grandmother knew that it would be the equivalence of winning a lottery.
To be able to
have a child born that way, because the entire community will hear about it, will respect it, and will respect that child. So I was never around kids. I didn't play with children as a
Really?
child, only my immediate family.
Really?
So most people, when I return home, they know of me as, the elders would know of me as the child with the veil.
Wow.
And so I grew up having people step aside and offering me the best of things and always looking at me with curiosity. And so that's how I grew up.
Wow. Well, thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for answering the phone when I called. And, well, you didn't kind of answer. You kind of did.
It was answered.
It was answered. It was answered. Wow, you are incredible. This is one of your many paintings.
Yes.
It has been said because you have a ballet.
Yes.
And Jonathan's artwork as a part of his ballet. Explain that, because I heard it described as the people that are part of this ballet dressed in the Gullah colors of Jonathan's art. Looks like they got dressed in a rainbow. How nice.
That was said by Mr. Pat Conroy.
How nice.
That was very nice. And that's how I feel. I feel like I'm imbued via a rainbow, and that I've had the most extraordinary life as a child and as a young adult, and have been in a wonderful 40-year relationship with the same person that I adore, and that I am uniquely protected in that I have someone that believes in what I do, that is the all omni person of business. Mm-hmm. All I have to do is paint, which I enjoy doing. I enjoy painting.
Yeah. So what was the inspiration for this piece, which is, this looks like the colors and it's the grass, and
I think it's
beautiful.
titled Marshland Landscape, and I painted it around 2000.
2001. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to work on a series of paintings around our garden in Florida. Mm-hmm. So we had a 25-acre garden.
Where did you live in Florida?
Naples, Florida.
Naples, okay.
And I just felt that we put so much work into that garden, into orchid and bromeliad and palm trees and waterscapes, that I wanted to paint it so that I can remember how I felt. And this is how I felt about our garden. It was somewhat wild, but somewhat tamed.
So talk about your art and the ballet, how you integrate the canvas to movement on stage.
Well, it was very easy because I did the work, and William Sterrett, who was the artistic director, simply looked at the paintings and created vignettes around, specific paintings. And it was his imaginary skill as a choreographer. He was with the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, so he has great experiences in Las Vegas, all of that stuff. So he was just the right person to make the paintings move, because he has that Las Vegas and Nevada ballet. You can imagine all the people he's been around all of his life. And he was looking at my work as something very different from anything he had ever experienced. And he has a well-integrated ballet company in Columbia, South Carolina, and his dances are Russian taught in terms of ballet, which are the finest, considered arguably the finest ballet dancers are from Russia. And when there was a defection in the 50s of a lot of the cultural artists from Russia coming to the United States, a group of dancers moved to Columbia and started a dance studio. And out of that came the Columbia City Ballet. And the Columbia City Ballet, when I was giving a talk at the governor's mansion, that's when William and I first met, and he says, Jonathan, I've always loved your work and always wanted to do something to you. And I had done and been around many dance figures in my lifetime, from great Virginia Johnson.
You did some work with the Alvin Haley dancers?
We did work in terms of fundraising with the Alvin Haley dancers. And so I I had some knowledge. I was offered a scholarship by Ruth Page in Chicago. She thought I was dance material. But art was I had so much passion about art, and I had a reason for art. My reason for art was to paint about the people that are of the culture that I'm a part of. And nothing is greater or bigger or more important than that in my life. And nothing ever can be. Because I'm leaving behind a facsimile of what they look like in terms of cultural behavior, just a glimpse. I'm not trying to document every aspect of life, from pumping water to mixing up a bread or cooking foods. I'm just giving you an essence of the landscape and the people in the landscape, and a moment of solitude and beauty and romance and fun and activity, the things that most people don't regard black people as doing.
Right. And as you're saying that, for those who think about Charleston, it's like, where is he getting that? Where'd that come from? Because when I think about Charleston, I think about da-da-da, and they have their list. And it's all about how you see it. Not that the hideous oppression and the bondage of other humans did not exist, but you choose to see.
I'm responsible for my generation.
Okay.
And that's what I saw in my generation. On the farms in Gardens Corner, in the cities in Charleston, Savannah, and Beaufort. I never saw anything other than people at their best, loving what they're doing and behaving likewise.
So when you compare where it appears that we are heading, where we are, what's our solution? We can talk about the problems. What are our solutions?
The cultural arts. Because people have to start doing in order to believe, and from that they can present and engage and be a part of it. So every little African American girl, little African American boy should be raised within the confines of a growing culture of where they need to be as adults and what they're going to share with their offsprings as adults based on what they have learned. So that manners and protocol and dress behavior, respect for others, the visualness of whom they are and what they look like, and exploration of the mind through reading.
Fundamental. This project, paying homage to those who died, making communities across the South very wealthy. How is this? Well, first of all, this musical that's based on your art, it is performed when and where?
It's going to perform at the Gilliard Auditorium Theater, October 22nd in Charleston, South Carolina, at noon.
Okay.
And we are going to have the Aeolian Singers to perform the Requiem. They are a well-known international classical choral group. They're coming down here to perform that. And we have the National Black Funeral Home Association to be a part of it. Because
what are they going to do?
Well, they're a part of the pageantry.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they're a part of the people that are doing the interment of all these people.
Yeah.
So they need to have a major voice in it as well.
Interesting.
And we have the remains of, I think, 37 bodies that were excavated from the Gilliard Auditorium site when it was under renovation. And we are working with the city to reinter those bones back to where they were found. And so that's
are those families involved?
Not
that you
families,
can find?
not that we know of. I'm sure that they're related to everybody around here, but specifically we do not know that. And so we're hoping to do that. It was a mass grave site, so there was a number of people killed. And they didn't die and they dumped them there. They were all killed together because of how they were dressed. And
Tell me what happened with that?
Well, some people, like the congressman, feels that it could have been a part of the Denmark Vesey killings. You know, Denmark Vesey was to burn Charleston to the ground. And so they were rounding up black people like cattle and dispensing of them. So I spoke with him, and he's an amateur historian, and he said, you know, Jonathan, those remains just might be the remains of Denmark Vesey Party.
Wow.
Because of how the types of not clothing, but the implements of clothing, like buttons. You know, buttons were very expensive back then.
Where are those bodies being held now?
They're now held in West Ashley in a protected, setting, site, storage, until that happens.
So tell us about how you are working to get this project funded and how people can get involved wherever they are. You have a website?
Yes. We have the best way to get in touch is through Dr. Kim Long, and her email is KTRAVL411@AOL.com. And the number is 903-578-0199. And that's Dr. Kim Long. And she's the person that is pulling all of this together.
Wow. Excellent. How few people have thought about paying homage to those who gave their lives, those young people, as you mentioned, who came here, innocent young people.
And it's a wonderful opportunity for community gatherings and recognizing. I mean, this is being done here, but I can welcome this being at any black community across America.
What do you hope this will do, this project?
I hope it will bring an awareness of one's importance, people of color, people of mixed race, people that are Europeans, white people, because they have black family, they have black blood in them. Many of them do. So it's to bring an awareness of how it happened that you are so imbued with fortune to live in a place like this. A living museum it is, Charleston, and the surrounding areas in the South. It's our DNA point, if you will.
And if we can find the healing in it.
I think healing can only come through the arts. If there's no art interest, culture, or activity, you ain't gonna never be healed.
Why?
Because
I mean, not from just, so, you know, storytelling is art.
Storytelling is art, dancing is art, presentation of cultural activities is art, visual image making is art, from painting to drawing to statues to recognizing the importance of our historical figures within many of our small communities. Those people need to be memorialized.
Absolutely.
There should be a statue of them, something of them.
Yeah. You know, I've had several people, as I've done many of these pieces about African Americans in various communities where I'm visiting, and they'll say, well, you know, in such and such town, this happened, this happened. Tell it. Tell the story.
And show it.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we have social media now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, should be used for something other than...
So look at it from this perspective, Pamela.
What perspective?
We have an estimated 502 historical plantation sites. All of them receive some type of federal subsidies. Around every one of those historical plantation sites are black communities. So if 502 historical plantation sites that have black communities around them, if each of those communities on one day, at one time,
wow,
would celebrate and leave an offering, be it a piece of art, be it monies or support to help support the arts in the community, to buying a piece of art or item to put in the church or in the cultural center, or make a donation to a school for the art department, and do it every year. That's all we have to do. It's really that simple. And that's when the healing starts. You can't wait to be healed by someone else. A doctor does not heal you. You heal yourself.
And that's where we are now.
We're in a healing.
Working toward healing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been talking about African Americans overcoming the stigma of mental illness, and it's the mind that has to be altered in this process. Cleansed. The mind needs to be cleansed in this process of healing. And we have so much that's so close to us. You know, we're not that many generations removed.
We need to get back into these communities and take care of these older black people. Take care of your ancestors.
That's
that are
right.
Here. If they need the yard cut, cut it. They need the house clean, clean it.
Need you to cook for them, cook for them.
Cook for them.
Pick them up, take them to where they need to go. That's how we used to do.
If we get busy doing that, we will be healed.
And teach our children the significance of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, if you take care of the grandparents, they're going to take care of the children.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's the role of grandparents.
Right.
The role of the parents is to provide and work for and take care of the elderly. The role of the grandparents is to make sure that that mind of the young child is imbued with all of history and culture.
Wow. We have a lot to do. A lot of people are doing great work.
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations. Kudos to all of you that are doing great work.
Yeah. And just the opportunity to do more. Jonathan, it's been such a pleasure sharing part of my morning with you.
Thank
here
you,
in your
Pamela.
home in Charleston, South Carolina. You have done some phenomenal works, and many more years of phenomenal work to come. And look forward to this. I hope to get back in October.
I hope you do, and share it with everyone. It's going to be an unbelievable event.
Yeah.
Yes, we have
world premiere of Requiem for Rice.
That's right. We have Mrs. Kathy Hughes coming. We just have all kinds of wonderful people coming now.
And this is the story of the people of Rice.
That's right.
Because we always think about the South and cotton. People don't think about rice doesn't come to the forefront of their minds as rapidly.
Well, yeah, rice. The culture of rice has been sort of displaced for such a long time, unfortunately. And with so many younger African Americans leaving after the Civil War and Reconstruction and then the Depression era, we have just sort of lost touch with that part of our history. But it's here and it's attainable, and we just need to come back and participate. It's nice to go to Kiowa and Seabrook golf, but you need to come into the communities, come into the city of Charleston, and be a part of the fabric of the city of Charleston for a lunch or spend a couple nights in the hotel. I mean, we need to know you're out there on those islands. So come on downtown.
Yeah. I want to go over to Sullivan Island today.
Yes.
To pay homage.
Yes.
To be in that space.
Yes. And as soon as you get across that bridge, to your left is a cemetery, a black cemetery.
Okay. I will look for that.
Yeah, I've been talking with some friends about helping to restore it.
Well, you, as I said, yeah, you are doing some phenomenal things. I'm so enjoying being here in your home this morning, and I appreciate it. Look forward to this.
And after that, we are working on a play of Queen Charlotte.
Are you? Tell us
Yes.
about the play of Queen Charlotte.
Well, you've heard of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
You've heard of Queen Victoria.
Yeah.
You've heard of Queen Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
Well, Queen Charlotte is the grandmother of Queen Victoria. And she was half African and half Chinese.
Really?
Yes.
That I didn't know.
So we're working with a professor out at Clemson, and
What are you going to do? A play? A musical?
we're gonna do she's writing a play.
She's writing a play. Nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Well, keep me informed.
Okay,
I
I
can scoot
will.
back over here.
Yeah, Dr. Robinson.
And the next time you're in Florida, please look me up.
I will. I have your card now. I can do that.
Yeah. Mr. Jonathan Green, thank you so much.
Pleasure, Pamela.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of Charleston.
I plan to.
Yes.
I plan to. And thank you all so very much for joining at the Wellness Radio TV in Charleston, South Carolina. We will continue to bring you some of the very interesting sights and sounds and people like Mr. Jonathan Green at the Wellness Radio TV. I'm Pamela Coons. Remember, there is healing at the well.